week it's been in Maranello, as Lewis Hamilton has spent his first days with Ferrari, going from symbolic pictures to meeting the team to getting behind the wheel of Ferrari machinery for the first time. We'll cover it all in just a moment. Lewis's week began with his first public visit to Maranello as a Ferrari driver, and he arrived to the cheers of Tifosi, set to begin his total immersion programme as the team put it. We got that now iconic image on socials from Lewis himself of him stood outside Enzo Ferrari's old house in the Piazza Michael Schumacher, just next to the Fiorano test track. Ferrari had made an F40 available for the occasion, which is Lewis's favourite supercar. But just behind this, fans noted a significance to the framing of the photo, with 7 windows shown behind Lewis and 1 door, which many commented may point to Lewis's existing 7 titles and there being a door to 8th at Ferrari. Lewis's caption gave some insight into how he was feeling about starting this new era, as he said, "There are some days that you know you'll remember forever, and today, my first as a Scuderia Ferrari HP driver is one of those days." Beyond the photo, Lewis spent some time being toured around Enzo Ferrari's house by team principal Fred Vasseur and their CEO Benedetto Vigna, before taking a look at the garage at Fiorano where he'd begin his test from in the coming days. Lewis was then taken to Scuderia HQ, as the team put it, where he met with management including Piero Ferrari, the company's vice chairman, who is Enzo Ferrari's son, and this day-long total immersion programme continued from there as he went around all of the different departments in Maranello meeting the team. It's also likely that this would have included a seat fit at some point, both in preparation for his on-track test that was set to come, but also for simulator work, which is reported to have begun this week. After day 1, the programme continued with technical meetings and briefings on Tuesday, both in preparation for the year ahead and his first time on track in the Ferrari. Ferrari hadn't confirmed ahead of time which day the test would be taking place, in an effort to keep the number of fans down and control the crowds on the roads around Fiorano, specifically on this overpass which overlooks the track. Despite these efforts, huge numbers of Tifosi had camped out overnight from Tuesday into Wednesday, with the hopes of getting a first glimpse at their new driver, and their patience paid off, as at 9:16 AM on Wednesday morning, Lewis went out on track as a Ferrari driver for the first time. Of course, this test wasn't using the 2025 car, but instead the 2023 car, the SF23, to make sure that this test was covered under the Testing Previous Cars programme of Ferrari, or TPC. For 2025, TPC includes cars from 2021 to 2023, and for the first time is limited in terms of the distance and time that current drivers can do. And ironically, it was Ferrari who played a big part in getting these restrictions put in place, after Max Verstappen tested the RB18 last year, right before the Spanish Grand Prix, coincidentally around the time that they were struggling with the ride height of the RB20. This of course raised a few eyebrows in the paddock, including those of Fred Vasseur, and these restrictions have now been put in place for this year. This type of testing previous cars is now capped at 20 days per team per season, or 4 days or 1,000 kilometres for each current driver, and as such teams have to be a bit more selective about who they put in their car and where and when. Lewis's run of the SF23 in Fiorano was never going to be about getting up to speed, but especially so given these new regulations and the nature of Fiorano as a not very representative track. Instead, the aim was to get Lewis up to speed with Ferrari's processes and controls, how the team works, how things like the DRS might differ from how it was at Mercedes, how the Ferrari power unit systems work, as he's only ever driven Mercedes-powered cars before, and as an all-round warm-up, which Fred Vasseur said was the sole purpose of the test. On track, Lewis began on wet tyres for his installation lap, given how foggy it was in Maranello, but he quickly came back in and switched to the slick Pirelli Academy rubber, which is provided specifically for these TPC events. On these he was able to push a bit more and even locked up a few times into the hairpin given how cold it was, and he also did some practice starts. After 3 separate runs and 30 laps, which equates to around 89 kilometres of the Fiorano track, Lewis came back in and did a post-session debrief with his engineers, before heading back out and waving to the Tifosi. In fact, Lewis commented on the support of the Tifosi in the statement he made after the test, saying he already knew how passionate the Ferrari family was, but to witness it firsthand as a Ferrari driver was awe-inspiring. On the test overall, Lewis said it was one of the best feelings of his life and that he had the biggest smile on his face when he left the garage. This test was our first chance to get a look at the team who'll be surrounding Lewis as he makes this transition into a Ferrari driver, including, as rumours had suggested, Angela Cullen, his physiotherapist and trainer. Angela had left F1 in mid-2023 and moved over to IndyCar to work with Marcus Armstrong, but news spread on Tuesday that she'd rejoined with Lewis's company Project 45 2024, and it quickly became apparent that this was true, and she can be seen supporting Lewis at the test in Fiorano. Angela has been credited by Lewis himself as the single hardest working woman that he gets to be around, and as one of the greatest things that's happened to him in his life. And no doubt it'll mean a lot to him to have her back on his team as he begins this new phase of his career. Another key part of a driver's team is their race engineer, and after Bono decided to stay at Mercedes when Lewis left, Lewis was assigned Riccardo Adami, a very experienced engineer who's better known as Ricky on the radio for his time at Ferrari. Lewis has previously spoken about the importance of a race engineer to him, saying to media in Zandvoort last year that he would know early on whether things will work out between him and his new engineer. Riccardo was previously Carlos Sainz's engineer, and before that worked with Sebastian Vettel over his time with Ferrari. But he's also worked with others like Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Buemi when he worked at Toro Rosso. The Wednesday test would have been Ricciardo and Lewis's first time working together, giving them their first insight into what their partnership might be like, and this will be a crucial factor in Lewis's introduction to Ferrari, as we know just how important the driver-engineer relationship is to success on and off track. Once Lewis's time on track had come to an end, Charles Leclerc then arrived and put in 44 laps in the wet around Fiorano, his first time back behind the wheel since Abu Dhabi. With this key test now over, the question remains what will come next for Lewis in this pre-season phase. Well, it seems Ferrari are wasting no time in getting Lewis prepared for that first race by maximising his time on track in this very short pre-season period. The next bit of TPC for Lewis and Ferrari more widely will come in Barcelona later this month, where the SF23 will be used again, and Lewis and Charles will alternate for 3 days on track. From here, they'll reportedly be back on track again at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, but with the SF24 this time for a Pirelli tyre test. It's unlikely that the SF24 will be exactly as it was at the end of last season in Abu Dhabi, as reportedly this Pirelli test is for the 2026 compounds, so some modifications will have to be made to make sure it can fit these narrower tyres. Even so, the fact that these tests are being held in Barcelona will mean they're much more representative and valuable for Lewis, as it's somewhere he's driven for many years in many different cars, giving him a good reference point to how the Ferraris might compare to his most recent Mercedes, for example. It'll also give the team a good comparison between Lewis's feeling and performance and those of previous drivers in the same cars, which may help them narrow in on the characteristics that Lewis likes from their cars and things that may need to be improved or changed. Despite this opportunity for comparison and feedback, it's highly unlikely that Ferrari will be able to take this on board for their 2025 car, as at this stage in the break it's probably pretty much there in terms of development or even build. Following these tests, the next step will be the F175 live event on February 18th, where Hamilton will be presented in a Ferrari suit for the first time, and we'll get our first look at what livery Ferrari will run in 2025. But the important day for Ferrari's 2025 car will be the following day, February 19th, as they'll be hosting a filming day presumably in Fiorano, using their new 2025 Challenger. This will give them 100 kilometres to gather promotional content for sponsors and media, but it'll also give Lewis and Charles a taste of what they'll be driving for the rest of the year. All of this will happen in the week before pre-season testing, meaning it's a very compact start to the year. But is Ferrari so concerned about this task that faces his new driver? Absolutely not, saying he expects Lewis to handle this challenge perfectly. Of course, we'll be bringing you all of the analysis from this pre-season prep on all of our social channels at Motorsport by Apex, and you can check them out in the description of this video. But for now, thank you for watching. Please consider liking if you enjoyed this deep dive, and subscribe for more of the same from Apex.